a really good question because data science is viewed as still one of these sexy industries that everybody wants to get into. Everybody wants to derive value out of data, but what does that really mean? Um, it, it's viewed as sort of black magic. Realistically, the idea is you hand data to data scientists and they create some great value for you. But the real value is understanding your business. The data scientists are there to create and tell a story with that data that helps you better drive all of your metrics, your ROIs, and your data quality, so you can really understand your customer base, whether that be B2C, B2B, any of the places, even internal projects and optimizations. But that's what data scientists are there for. They won't just tell you this is the right thing to do to make sure somebody opens an email, but they'll tell you, hey, 1% of your data is wrong, or that all those ideas that you had about the way our user base works is true for 70%, but for the other 30%, it's not at all right. So you can then gain deeper insight to what is really driving your company and your top and bottom lines. This is an individual standpoint. There's no one size fits all for this. My experience is that I come in and drive. I'm a very much a 0 to 90 person, and each case is new and different. If I'm the first person in, it's really about understanding what people want and what people want to do with the data. What do they want to see from it in the short to long term? So that the first steps in driving a team might just be driving a better data source and data understanding, and that can be both just engaging with the current back end data dev team that you might have, or even having to hire on some people if you need to rebuild your data systems as well. As for the deeper understandings, whether it be analytics or data science, so I mean, the whole gambit is valuable. Report. Let's start back at metrics, KPIs, OKRs, whatever you care to call it. The reports that get generated on those, the dashboards for self-service, or the data science that gets you down into the individual interactions, all are important. But you have to keep an eye to what the value for the company is at that point in time. I hate the idea of taking a team and saying, okay, we're going to deliver something in 9 months, and you just have to wait for 9 months. No, you should always be thinking of, as you're building your team out, what can we deliver in 3 and 6 months, so on and so forth. Always, fast returns, much like anything else that's expected in development. To the best of the ability, because data science has a bit larger error bars on the delivery timeline. Yeah, on that topic, I mean, that sort of leads into a whole nother line of discussing is how do you set priorities for your data science team, and realistically, how do they deliver, and what is that delivery measured against? Because uh, you do want to work in sort of the agile framework as much as you can. You do want to have that constant delivery of value. Uh, but things don't work out. Sometimes you just need to pause something because you don't have the data available, or you need to even create a whole new system to collect and manage the data so that the analysis can be done. Sometimes you run into problems with the analysis and they take longer. As long as there's agreement to moving forward, and I work very much with a fail fast approach, it's okay. You just make sure that your stakeholders are properly engaged and they understand what's going on and when things are stopping, or hopefully just pausing and not actually stopping, so that new timelines can be defined around current priorities. It's just like anything else in the development world. Problems happen. It's a little more frequent with the data science teams. It depends upon what you want the data science team to do. If you treat it as a service, so when I was at Autodesk, I built out an applied data science service for the entire company. So we sat within the technical branch, the engineering department of the company, because we acted as a service. People would come to us. We would do our own product management. We define the product and then push it forward to people. So you might ask, well, then why not be in the product team? It's like, because we didn't have a dedicated set of people to say these are the products that we're driving going forward. As you mature as a company and a data science team, or just a data team in general, you can have more of that product focus or that product push where you're road mapping saying these are, over the next 6, 12, 18 months, these are the big ticket items that we'll want to have. Well, at the same time, specifically putting some of your time against that service work. Now, the real thing is now maybe you want to put it in operations because you're just not sure where it goes. The biggest thing is to make sure that there's a little bit of, I don't want to call it ambiguity, but the ability to change and manage directions for the team itself. I always go back to the term that data science is black magic. It's hard for people to manage a team and set the direction if they don't have experience within that as well. And that's what you have to make sure of, is that the person at the top of the organization, whatever that might be, who reports into the next level up, really can manage that. So that's a really good question, and people, even say, well, look at Power BI. They have forecasting pieces, like you put in a series of data, and you just stretch the horizon, and it automatically forecasts for you. But the problem is, you get into that can get you into trouble really, really quickly. If you think about it this way, imagine somebody's looking at the sales history. Say they're a consumer sales site, pick whatever one you want, and they've been looking at 9 months of data, Q1 through Q3. And so they start making predictions off that for Q4. They go, okay, here's going to be our sales for Q4. They bring it up to their manager. It looks okay. They bring it to executives, and the executives look at it and they laugh at them. It's like, well, why? It's like, well, Q4 is the holiday season. Sales go up hugely over this. And these are the things you need to, I mean, these are the most basic pieces you need to consider. Uh, and without the consideration of the person running it, that won't ever happen. So automatic pieces are good. In my experience, if you take an Einstein or any other automated system, and you just have let's call it an analytics person running it, so they understand the basic data. You don't run into situations like I just explained. They're going to see a lift, over the cost of, say, their salary in Einstein by a couple percent. So you will see returns. And then what if you have a couple of data scientists, say junior and mid-level data scientists, who sort of struggle along? They have the ideas, but they don't have sort of that team behind them and that mentorship from people who've done and seen it before. There you're going to get double digits, multiple double-digit return lift, sort of 20 to 40% usually. But when you have that full team, and it can take a while to assemble it, from that good leader all the way through to the most junior people who really just want to spend the time understanding and building up their skill sets, you'll get somewhere between 10x and 100x return, depending upon the maturity of your organization. I can tell you that Autodesk, my team was running at roughly 35x cost in the way of returns, if not even more. And that's a conservative value. That's just primary pieces that we're talking about. The lifts on the metrics that we measure our predictive and prescriptive algorithms against. It doesn't even talk about the data QA that we were constantly doing and pointing to the database team, because being one of the primary users of that, we see a lot more of those error cases or those sort of half percent pieces, because they affected the algorithms a lot more than, say, just an analytics dashboard. There can get lost in the noise. So not even thinking about those secondary pieces, which can be huge, whether it be optimization, data quality, data management, just overall understanding, having a good, well-placed data science team and right sized for the company, I would expect somewhere between a 20 and 50x lift on the cost of the team. Yeah, so this is a process issue, and it's a part of maturing a data science team. Frequently, when I walk in, the major problem that I have with the data science team, or see with data science teams and how they act with the stakeholders, or whoever they're producing for, is that the questions aren't well defined. Think about a front end engineer, somebody who's going to build something like a new web page. You're not just going to say, build a landing page for me or build a new front page for our website. No, there's going to be discussion of what goes into it, what you want to be driven, what are the calls to action, all of those various pieces, and then what are the metrics behind it to say we're trying to improve over our current system. Those discussions don't always happen with data science. If I go back to the example I used a while ago, we simply say, improve the click-through rate on my email. But there are so many different ways that that could happen. uh, that it can change drastically, whether who decides to implement it, and whether their ideas are the same as the people asking for it. So a lot of this, to make sure that the products or these projects and products don't fail, is that you get everybody on board at the beginning. And there's you need a multi-step approach at the beginning to make sure everybody has the right idea in mind. You know how, um, at least internally to the data science team, how it's going to be developed, and how we're going to meet the expectations of of the clients, stakeholders, whatever the end users of this, and that there's agreement between the team and the end users that we will put together the data in such a way so that it's usable by them. If it's not usable, why bother spending the time? I'm a very applied person. I like to see those lifts and values. Uh, Things, as we talked about, can fail, and they can run shorter or longer. But once everything's agreed upon, you start moving forward. As I talked about, I take a very fail fast method. If things are slowing down and going to take a little longer, if it's within reason, you just go with it, and you just say it takes a little. We hit real roadblocks. You talk to your stakeholders, much like you would with any other project. You say, hey, this is going to take an extra 2 weeks, an extra 4 weeks, or months. We don't have the data for it, but you have to be clear up front. And the earlier you can fail, the better, because the biggest case where you get that disconnect and that lack of trust between any sort of data team and a set of product or stakeholder management groups is that you wait the 6 or 9 months and then they say it can't be delivered. It's like, no, if you told them a month or two in it can't be delivered, or we can deliver a reduced format uh, in say some other time period we don't have everything, that's a much better experience. That leads more into an applied research than just saying at the end, it's like, nah, it didn't work. It's like, then what were you spending all your time on here? Why couldn't we do other things to drive it forward? But this is how I mitigate my risk. And realistically, over the past 5 or 6 years, I've had a small handful of the many dozens of projects, probably in the 50 to 100 range, that have been over the past 5 or 6 years. Probably more than that at this point, probably closer to 100. I think I've had 3 fail at this point. Uh, and and sometimes it's, two of those I can point to, saying that the stakeholders and the data scientists, we were getting to very complex topics, and it's that black magic built in that you really need to understand why it's failing and the limitations and why we couldn't meet the expectations, and that we didn't do a good enough job up front at the beginning in these discussions to say, we don't think it's going to meet your expectations. It can do X, Y, and Z, but it's not going to do the A, B, and C that you really want.